God's grace? Misunderstood? Well, God's grace is not what many people think. So today, let's talk about God's grace. Because grace is one of those words Christians use all the time without always stopping to think about what it really means. We sing about grace. We pray for grace. We say that we are saved by grace. But sometimes we treat grace like a religious word that belongs inside a church building instead of something that changes how we see God, ourselves, and the people around us. You see, grace is God giving us love we did not earn and could never purchase. It is God meeting us while we are still unfinished. It is forgiveness arriving before we have figured out how to repair everything we broke. Grace is not God pretending that our choices do not matter. It is God deciding that our failures will not be allowed to have the final word. That distinction matters. Grace is not permission to do whatever we want because God will forgive us afterwards. Grace is not spiritual excuse. It does not say, keep hurting people, keep lying, keep living selfishly. Nothing matters because God is gracious. That is not grace. That is taking advantage of mercy while while resisting the God that offers it. Real grace does not simply rescue us from consequences. It begins changing the person who created the consequences. Think about a child who breaks something valuable in a house. The parent may forgive the child. The relationship is not ended. The child is still loved. But forgiveness does not mean the parent hands the child another expensive object and says, go ahead, break that one too. Love forgives, but love also teaches. Grace receives us as we are, but it loves us too much to leave us exactly as we are. That is one of the clearest lessons we see in Jesus. There was a man named Zacchaeus who had become wealthy by collecting taxes. Tax collectors at the time were widely distrusted because many of them took more money than people actually owed. Zacchaeus was not simply unpopular, he represented a system that had harmed his own neighbors. When Jesus came through town, Zacchaeus climbed a tree just to see him. Jesus looked up and called him by name. Jesus did not begin by humiliating him in front of the crowd. He did not announce every bad decision Zacchaeus had ever made. He told Zacchaeus that he was coming to his house. That was grace. Before Zacchaeus had made restitution, Jesus moved toward him. Before Zacchaeus had corrected his reputation, Jesus treated him like a human being worth speaking to. Before the community believed Zacchaeus could change, Jesus gave him an opportunity to change. But notice what happened next. Zacchaeus did not say, wonderful, Jesus accepts me, so I can continue cheating people. He stood up and promised to give generously to the poor and repay those who he had cheated. Grace did not make him comfortable with his dishonesty. Grace made him want to become honest. That's what grace does. Grace does not only tell you that your past can be forgiven, it shows you that your future can be different. Some people think they must clean themselves up before they can come near God. They imagine God standing at a distance with folded arms, waiting for them to become impressive enough to deserve His attention. But that is not the picture Jesus gave us. Jesus moved toward people who were ashamed, confused, rejected, sick, grieving, and spiritually lost. He did not wait for them to become perfect. He met them in the middle of their reality. Now, you may be carrying something today that you wish you could erase. Maybe you said something that damaged a relationship. Maybe you walked away from an opportunity you should have taken. Maybe you have repeated the same mistakes so many times that you have started believing change is no longer possible. Grace does not deny what happened. Grace says that what happened does not have to define everything that happens next. God's grace is not a promise that life will become easy. Receiving grace does not mean every problem disappears, every relationship is restored, or every consequence is removed. Sometimes forgiveness is immediate, while rebuilding takes time. You can be forgiven and still need to apologize. You can be loved by God and still need to repair what you have damaged. You can receive a new beginning while still facing the results of an old decision. Grace gives us the courage to face those things without believing they make us worthless. That may be one of the greatest gifts grace offers. It separates who you are from the worst thing you have ever done. Your mistake may be part of your story, but it is not your entire identity. And once we understand grace, it should begin changing how we treat other people. We cannot celebrate God's patience with us while refusing to show patience to anyone else. We cannot ask God to remember our humanity while reducing another person to one terrible moment. We cannot receive forgiveness with open hands and then close those hands when someone else needs mercy. That does not mean we ignore abuse, tolerate dishonesty, or remove healthy boundaries. Grace and wisdom can exist together. Forgiveness does not always mean immediate trust, and loving someone does not require giving them unlimited access to hurt you again. Grace simply means we refuse to believe that cruelty is the only possible response to wrongdoing. Jesus showed truth and mercy at the same time. He could confront sin without treating the sinner as disposable. He could challenge people without stripping away their dignity. That is the lesson for us. Grace is not weakness. It takes strength to forgive without pretending nothing happened. It takes strength to admit you were wrong. It takes strength to believe that a damaged life can still be rebuilt. Today, you do not have to earn your way into God's attention. You do not have to perform well enough to make Him care. You do not have to hide every scar, failure, doubt, or unfinished part of your life. You can come honestly. God's grace is not a reward for people who never fell. It is the hand that reaches toward us while we are trying to stand again. Receive that grace today. Let it humble you, heal you, correct you, and change you. Then carry it into your home and your workplace, your friendships, and every conversation where someone needs to know that failure does not have to be the end. My name is Douglas Vandergraph, and I believe in Jesus Christ. God bless every single one of you. Every single one.